What started as a single tweet from young Thug quickly spiraled into one of the most intense and high-stakes courtroom showdowns of his career. One that nearly cost him his probation and could have landed him right back behind bars. What did he say? Why did prosecutors come down so hard? And how close did Thugger come to losing everything? The answers will blow your mind. Let's get one thing straight. When you're a high-profile rapper like Young Thug, every single word you utter, every emoji you post, and every breath you take is dissected under the harshest microscope by the public, the media, and more importantly, the law. But even by his standards, no one expected that a vague, cryptic tweet would snowball into a potential probation violation that had the prosecution sharpening their knives and a judge forced to reconsider the rapper's freedom. And if you thought this was some misunderstanding, think again. Because what prosecutors claimed in court goes way deeper than just a misinterpreted post. They painted a picture of Young Thug as someone who was allegedly inciting violence and stirring up his fan base to target witnesses and authorities. That's right. According to them, that tweet was more than just words. It was fuel for a digital firestorm that quickly turned real. Let's rewind. In the midst of his already intense legal saga tied to his ongoing YSL RICO case, Thug found himself back in court again. But this time it wasn't about weapons, it wasn't about drugs, and it wasn't even about anything he physically did. It was about what he said or didn't say on social media. The post in question. A vague, seemingly harmless message that didn't mention names, places, or specifics. But to prosecutors, that post was the match that lit the fuse. In their eyes, it wasn't just a tweet. It was a coded message. Signal. A warning. Or worse, a call to arms. Soon after the tweet went live, social media erupted. Within minutes, Thugger's army of fans were speculating, decoding, interpreting the message like it was scripture. Some took it as a shot at snitches. Others saw it as commentary on the case. But a few, too many, took it as a green light. Prosecutors presented evidence in court of violent messages, threatening DMs, and ominous posts that were allegedly sent to people connected to the case. People who, at the time, were thought to be witnesses or potential informants. Some of the messages were so threatening, the court had to redact names and lock down testimony. And just like that, Thug was being accused of violating the very probation that was keeping him out of a cell. Now here's where things got even more intense. Prosecutors didn't just argue that the tweet was reckless, they claimed it was strategic. That Young Thug, knowing his influence and understanding how his fans operate, deliberately posted the tweet to create pressure, spread fear, and silence people. They pointed to his massive platform, his history, and the cultural weight he carries, especially in the Atlanta rap scene. According to them, Thug knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't about freedom of speech. This was about interference, witness tampering, digital intimidation. And that, they said, was more than enough to justify revoking his probation and tossing him back into custody. At this point, the courtroom was electric. Cameras weren't allowed in, but insiders who were present said the tension was unreal. Prosecutors didn't hold back. They painted a picture of Young Thug as a shadow puppet master, pulling strings behind the scenes, using his fame and words to orchestrate chaos without ever getting his hands dirty. And then they dropped the bombshell, their demand. They wanted the judge to revoke his probation immediately, citing a clear and present danger to the case and those involved. That's when things got real. You could practically hear the air suck out of the room. For a moment, everyone watching this play out thought it was over. That this tweet, this one damn tweet, was about to send Thugger back to jail, derail everything he was building, and potentially tank his defense in the broader RICO case. His lawyers scrambled. They called the accusations outrageous, exaggerated, and based on assumptions rather than facts. They argued that the tweet didn't target anyone, didn't contain threats, and wasn't a violation of anything. And most importantly, they reminded the court that you can't control how other people interpret your words. They made it clear, if fans went off the rails, that wasn't on Thug, that was on them. But prosecutors weren't letting go. They brought up precedent, other celebrities who had allegedly used coded language to influence outcomes, and they even referenced past statements Thug had made in interviews and lyrics. The entire thing started to feel less like a legal hearing and more like a cinematic trial scene out of a high-stakes drama. And then came the big moment, the judge's response. Judge Whitaker, who had been relatively quiet during the prosecution's fiery presentation, finally weighed in. And what he said stunned the room. Instead of immediately siding with the prosecution, he took a pause, long dramatic pause. He acknowledged that the post had, indeed, sparked a chain reaction of dangerous behavior. He even said he understood why prosecutors were concerned. But he also made it clear, there was a line between what someone says and how the public reacts. And unless it could be proven that Thug's intent was to provoke violence, there wasn't a strong enough case to revoke his probation. In other words, close but no cigar. So, after days of building tension, of uncertainty, of Thugger's entire team holding their breath, the judge ruled that while the situation was serious, it didn't rise to the level of sending him back to jail. His probation would stand, for now.